Hello, and welcome to an episode of Doing Stuff with Buck. I have named that now. I was going to say Doing Shit with Buck, but I don't kind of like that. That's kind of gross. So, Doing Stuff with Buck. New series. This is going to be documenting, showing you how to rewire a light that is an older light, and all I'm doing is the interior light. I have an old lighting kit, just sections of them from rewiring multiple lamps and things like this. This is going outside. So I got to tell you the story about this as I take it apart. So these lanterns, if you will, exterior light fixtures, so cool, so stylized. Aren't they awesome? I got them, I think, for $5 or $7 a piece. What? Yes, I did. We were at Restore, at Habitat for Humanity Restore. We were looking at a bunch of stuff. We got some shelves, the metal shelves that you see behind us. They were $10, and they're like heavy duty. If you've got one in your area, or if you can get to one, go to Restore from Habitat for Humanity. It's phenomenal. Not only the deals, but what they do and how they do it is just outstanding. So what we were doing was Lee and I were walking around the store, looking at, oohing and eyeing at different things and going, I'm always doing the, oh, we could use that. Could we use that? Could we use that? And Lee's always like, meh, 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 because he's the pragmatic one. I'm the, like, all these dreams about what we could use it for. Okay, I've got a reversible screwdriver here. Just taking off the glass part, removing the oopsies. Oh my gosh, come on, Patrick. So we were walking through the store warehouse. There we go. Right now I'm removing the set screws. My screwdriver head is almost too big for these screws. And there's 3 set screws on here. Should be able to get them to the point where I can loosen them by hand, because I want to be able to take this off. Come on. Now, yeah, we were walking through, this young man was, Lee was like, oh my God, look what he's got in his hand. So I'm going to set this aside. This is the globe. Beautiful, right? Total, just love it. The smoked glass is so cool. It may not be your style, but what I'm about to do is accurate, or would apply for pretty much any rewiring of a fixture. Yeah, so this young man, cute, like seriously cute young man, was walking through the store, and I'm gonna figure out how this is attached. He had just picked up these 2 fixtures. And Lee, being Lee, was like, oh my God, they're fabulous. And he, like, I spy with my little eye, saw them. And he's like, oh no. I'm like, why didn't we see them? And got them before he could. And then I was like, oh, that's just me. And I'm glad that he's going to be using them and that they're great. And Lee was like, oh, I wonder if he's... And so this kid kept wandering around, this young man. It's not a kid, he's a young man. Kept wandering around and had them, he was buying something else. He was so cute. He had headphones on, right? A hoodie and a jacket over it, with a beard type of thing. Super cute. And so I just took out the screw that was inside. If you can see, yep, you see that screw right there, dink. I just unscrewed that, figured out that that was the only thing holding this part, which holds the bulb screws into, was the only thing holding it in. There's my screw. You always want to make sure when you're doing projects like this that you either have a little container that you can put these things in, or what I like to do is I like to take a roll of tape, set it down, throw stuff in it. All my little pieces and parts. It keeps everything from wandering around, right? So this guy kept wandering around the store. And as you can see in this top part, let's empty out the crap. Make sure I didn't just lose something vital. Nope, it was just stuff. And that's where the screw is. You can see that. That's where the screw is screwed onto. Yep. So It says caution, risk of fire, use 70-watt max, wow, with LEDs. That there's a debate, but if you think logically, why was it 75-watt max? It's a heat thing. There was a heat thing because if you put more in there, it's going to be much hotter, and it would crack the glass because these are contained. And so they put a 75-watt max bulb in there. With LED, it's a little bit different story, but it's up to you. I'm not going to tell you one way or another because then I don't want to be liable for your for whatever happens to you. So this is not how I was hoping it was going to be attached. Poop. These are actually sort of riveted on. I was hoping that they would be screwed on, but they are not. Shoot. So I have a black wire and I have a white wire. And the wires are in kind of rough shape on these ends. But other than that, they actually look in much better shape than I thought they would. So maybe all I need to do is just clean these up. They're very solidly attached to the bulb base. The insulation is in great shape. You can see that, if it focuses in on that, yeah. It's actually in really good shape. I don't actually need to replace these. What I am going to do is I'm going to clean up the ends, however. And our electrician is going to come in and finish up interior and exterior lighting at some point when our kitchen remodel gets to that point. They're back on track, back not on track, but back to the new delayed 3-week delayed schedule. We were waiting for inspections. The inspection division here in West Hartford is currently down 2 people. So they're integrating the new system of being able to do video inspections that they were able to do during COVID that were so successful. And so they've just done a bunch of trainings, which is awesome. So they'll be able to do that, but they've got to get those trainings done. The people trained. They've got 2 openings for jobs that they just posted fully. So anyway, so they're behind, and we had to wait on them, which at first was like, in my mind, we found this out when we got back from the trip to Europe, and I was just like out of my mind because I was like, what the hell? Because we thought that it was because of like they had changed the code. Well, it wasn't. It was a total misunderstanding. And they were actually really nice enough to call me and be like, no, this is what's going on, and like report, because I was like, I'm not one to sit by and just have shit happen and not make a big deal out of it if it warrants making a big deal out of it. I will not blow stuff out of proportion, but if something happens and it's like not being explained to me, and I understand how most of this stuff works, for the most part. And I was like, well, I was getting a weird explanation. So when I got that weird explanation, I was like, all right, I'm going to the source to find out what the hell is actually going on, why there is such a 3-week delay, 2.5, 3-week delay. Because we were going to host the holidays here at the house with the new kitchen, and suddenly that went out the window. So when I got back, I made a kerfuffle, made a scene, and got results. The guy at the office actually called me, which I was very appreciative of. We had a very brief conversation. It didn't need to be a long one, but he explained what was going on. And I was like, thank you, appreciative. And I sent him and his office because what was going on made sense, but I needed it from like the horse's mouth so that I would not like go ballistic. And so I sent him in appreciation. Somebody had told Lee that their office likes bagels, so I sent him a bunch of bagels, and a nice note that said, I appreciate your work and appreciate you taking the time to talk to me. It was, above and beyond, which I'm very appreciative of, but it was needed because I was a disgruntled person until he ungruntled me, if that's a term, and explained it in very, very plain terms what was going on. So what I'm doing is I'm cleaning up the ends of these right now so that when the electrician gets it, he'll be like, bloop, bloop, and it'll be fine, but it'll be a little less work for him to do. And that way I can make sure that it actually looks clean and looks good. I'm taking my needle nose pliers. Normally I wouldn't use needle nose, but that's what I got right here. I have a separate, just so you see behind me, I have a separate, and I recommend this to people. Toolboxes are cheap. They're inexpensive, right? You don't have to buy an extravagant toolbox if you're just a homeowner who does stuff, you know, like if you're not like a contractor. I mean, even contractors have multiple toolboxes. My recommendation to you is get multiple smaller, like medium size toolboxes, plastic ones. I have a black one that I know what's in there. I have a big red metal one. I know what's in there. I have a rolling toolbox that's multiple shelves. I know exactly what's in there. Those are all my socket wrenches and anything that I need to do on the car, big stuff like that, right? This one is only for electrical stuff. I have electrical tape in here. I have wire strippers. I have, you know, sensors for, is there a current? I have my other meter, amp meter. I have wires. I have a screwdriver. I have a stud finder. So all of these things are just in one box. So I know if I'm doing a project that's just electrical, if I'm switching out an outlet, if I'm switching out a light switch, something like that, if I'm installing a light, whatever, or I'm moving something, anything electrical, because you know, I've been doing this for a very long time and doing basic electrical. If it's stuff like installing new breakers to put in outlets throughout the basement, I hire somebody. But if it means other things that are within my grasp and that I'm really confident with, because if you don't do it right, you will burn down your house, I have my toolbox specifically for electrical. So I do recommend doing that. I have, you know, different ones for different functions. It makes it so that you don't have things scattered between toolboxes randomly or in different locations throughout the house. I have 2 workbenches, one in the basement here and one out in the garage. I added one to the garage, and because I've got outside project, inside project type of stuff. It doesn't matter where I store my toolboxes, at least I know, and they're always under my workbenches, one workbench or the other, depending on where I was last working on stuff. Doesn't matter necessarily where, as long as it's always the same place. So store your stuff in the same place. Growing up, I was really bad, yes, I know, Dad, really bad about putting stuff away, and as soon as I went out on my own and was like, I can't find my shit, and I had nobody to blame on it other than myself, I started being like, all right, I'm going to be super, super organized. And the way to do that is just get multiple boxes. I always had multiple boxes. I have other boxes that are literally for plastering. I've got like bins that are just for painting supplies, separate from plastering supplies, separate from tiling supplies, separate from, right? Don't intermix, just be organized. It saves a lot of headache in the long run. So as we look on the inside of this socket, we are gonna see that it's super nice and clean. Let me see if I can get some fabulous light in there. Look at that. Oh yeah, nice and clean. It's really actually in great shape. The wire connectors are in really good shape. The wires coming in on them are not split at all. So I'm gonna leave this, I'm gonna clean it up a little bit, get some of the crap out of my little utility brush that apparently I was using on pottery last time. Oh my God. There you go, this one's a little less dusty. I'm just gonna clean the like cobwebs out of there so that there's no materials that are gonna potentially catch on fire, and clean out the inside a little bit. And that's all done. So this is fabulous to find out that I don't actually need to replace it. So this is not a video about how to rewire, it's about how to clean up wiring. So now what I've done is on the very tips, I have gone, and I will tell you the rest of the story about getting these light fixtures, I promise. I went just very lightly clamp the wire on the outside, and I'm not clamping down hard. I'm just clamping lightly, and I'm running it around. And what that's doing is it's cleaning up the wrap of the wires and making them so they're nice and tight, but I'm not stressing the wires, because these wires, if you bend them, they break, because it weakens the wire itself. And I don't want to do that. I just want to get them nice and cleaned up. There we go. And they're nicely tight. I clipped off the very ends, and those tips are now, if you can see it against my super pale hand, in wonderful shape. Yep, yay. All right, so much for the blinding light, right? So now I'm gonna clean up the inside of the fixture itself. The outside of the fixture I will clean up separately, because I can do that without the globe on, but I wanna get the wiring in first. There's a lot of, if you look at the surface on here, I'll put the light back on there. You can see a little scratchy. I can actually scratch it. That was a horrible sound, and I apologize. But it's just a little bit of corrosion from being outside. I will clean that up with a paper towel and a little bit of, I don't know what I'll use on it. I'll buff it up somehow so the metal isn't so dull, because it will come and shine back up. I'm sure we have something in the house. I'll ask the guys, and we'll brainstorm on how to clean up the metal and get it so that it's not so matte. So now what I'm going to do is feed these back through. There's a hole in the back. Let's clean the back up a little bit. They came with the brackets, incredibly enough, which is just freaking wild. So this kid was walking, young man, very handsome young man, was walking through the store with these in his hand, but he wasn't like finalizing that he was going to take them. He got a little cart. What I was telling you is he had the headphones on, and there was a bunk bed set, and he went and laid on the bottom bunk of the bunk bed. I mean, just, it's very, very funny. Guy like maybe in his early 30s, late 20s. But he had these two, and he's like holding on to them. He finally got a cart, put stuff on, found another fixture. And so Lee was just like, well, I wonder if he's actually gonna get them. And we're gonna start wrapping stuff up. And I'm like, well, I'll go ask if he actually really wants them. And Lee's like, what? And I'm like, oh yeah. So I just walked up to the kid, the young man, and I was just like, so can I ask you a question? He was like, me? And I'm like, yes, ask you a question. I know this is gonna come across very weird, but are you definitely going to buy those? And he was like, they're cool, right? I'm like, they are really cool. Like, really, really cool. And he says, yeah, they're kind of mid-century, and that's the vibe I'm going at my house. And I'm like, well, where are you going to use them? Are you going to use them inside or outside? And he's like, oh yeah, I'm going to use them outside, one at the front and then one at the back. I think that they'll work well there. I said, well, just so you know, and this is no pressure, but if you decide not to get them, we will definitely buy them. We're going to be here for a little while more. We're looking at shelving and things like this. And I said, but just if you don't want them, just find us, or leave them for us at the front, and because we absolutely love them too, and you've got great taste. And so he's like, oh, okay, that's cool. And so we chatted a little bit more, just randomly, because that's how you do at these stores, because you're sort of a like mind with other people. So now I'm just trying to feed these through. I may tape them together to make it so that they both go through a little bit easier. Oh, there we go. They popped right through the other side. So this is coming down, and I'm just gonna feed the wires nicely through so they pop up the top. See? And all I did was I squished them together, fed them through, and they came right through nicely. Now this is gonna go, I'm gonna use that screw again and put this back on. And everything else is cleaned up. I don't really want to mess with it a lot. I don't want to oil it because I don't want to take a chance of, the screws move fine, so I don't really need to do anything on that. They're nice and, oddly enough, it's beautifully clean. This little set screw is a little bit dirty. I'm going to clean this up. So this guy was like, maybe 10, 15 minutes later, he comes up to me, he says, so you guys really like these? And I was like, yeah, we really do, but only if you choose not to get them. Would be interested. He says, since you like them so much, this is how cool this guy was, right? Since you like them so much, why don't you take them? Why don't you go ahead and get them? And I was like, no, seriously, only if you don't want them. He says, well, I could use them at my house. And I said, because when I was first describing where we'd use it, I said, we've got these 2 spots right outside our dining room where the electrician just made it so we could have outside lights on either side of our sliding glass door. And, you know, our house is mid-century, blah, blah. And he was like, well, it sounds like you're the place that you'd be able to use them, that you want matching ones. And he said, with mine, I don't care if they're matching or not, because one's at the front and one's toward the back. So he came up and he was just like, it sounds like you really like these, and that the placing for it would work better at your house, and that you really need matching fixtures and you love them so much. He says, why don't you just go ahead and take them? And he hands them to me. And I'm like, seriously, this is really sweet. But you know, I'm really appreciative. Are you sure? And he says, yeah, it sounds great. You know, and I was just like, oh my God, you are just the nicest guy ever. This is the sweetest thing. He's just big smiles. And I was just like, and, you know, of course, I'm kind of like, hey, you're cute too. And I'm like, don't act like a fool, Patrick, because he's so adorable and he was so sweet. Yeah, so he was so cool. So we see him like a million times around. He's always got this pretty smile, and very, very sweet, very approachable. And so as we're checking out, I'm just like, so what else are you getting? And he ended up actually getting a table. He's like outfitting himself from Restore, because they got nice stuff. I mean, I can't tell you enough about how great Restore is to be able to get things. They get things that, like, Heart just completely redid, apparently, a bunch of their dorms. All the desks at University of Hartford are there. All of the the little like 3 and 4 drawer bureaus, dressers are there. And they're solid wood. I mean, it's just solid wood things. They had a whole bunch of furniture in there. They're always cycling through different furniture. They also, at this one, they have pallets, 4 foot tall by 4 foot wide pallets of fabric, rolls of fabric, multiple, and you never know how much you're going to get. Funky, heavy duty upholstery fabric that is from hotels and things like that, with these awesome patterns. So if you need fabrics that are for outside, or for that you want to use to reupholster something, or just to make a cover for something, the place to go, right? You could also use those fabrics for like wall pieces. You could actually literally frame some of these fabrics. They're so pretty and so cool. We found a whole roll of fabric that I fell in love with, that was circles, concentric, or not concentric, but like overlapping circles with these awesome colors. And one of the projects that I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be recovering all of our dining room tables, chairs, tables. All of their dining room chairs, except for the ones with arms, because it's the back on them. I can't do the back because it's all the little studs. And I know how to do it, but I don't want to screw it up. So we're going to have somebody actually do those. But I'm going to repad the bottom. I'm going to add foam. I'm not going to take out what's there. I'm going to add foam over it. And then I'm going to add the upholstery, another layer of upholstery. We're going to leave the fabric that's underneath though, because it's nice, and it adds a layer of structure to the seat of the chairs. So that'll be a series of videos as well. So now I've got this all in here, and we're good to go. This piece right here, if you can see it, this screw here is part of this bracket on the back. So when I'm actually installing it, or when the electrician is installing it, he'll adjust this. What I want to make sure is that the nuts and the threading is nice and free, and that the cap will actually come off so that he doesn't. Thank you. Say hi.
Hi.
That's Lee.
Ooh, nice.
Yeah, it's very pretty, right? So I don't have to rewire them, because the wires are in good shape. I just cleaned them up. So I've got a nut, the cap, and then the actual mounting bracket. So I'm going to put that back on. I know they're nice and free and that they can be used. So stick this back through, thread this halfway, just make it easier on the electrician, so that he doesn't have to, like, you know, mess with it. He can get everything off as needed, and then put everything back on easily. So that's nice and clean, and there we go. That's all done. The wires are fine on this end. They look a little frayed. They're actually in better shape than they look at first blush. It looks like somebody had stained their house and got it on the wires, which is just fine. And it's in fabulous shape. So now we're going to do the other one real quickly. Now that we know what we're in store for, I'm going to set that aside. We will clean the outside of the metal later. I want to take the metal outside, the glass globe off of this one now. Get these set screws out and moving easily. There we go. There we go. Can be very gentle with these because I want the metal to stay in good shape, but I also want the glass not to get all crapped up or scratched or anything like that. Normally I'd put down a towel, but this table is actually in good shape. You can put down a towel underneath, like a terry cloth towel will help to keep anything from getting scratched, especially if you're using new things or if your surface is granite or any kind of stone. You don't want to be putting these things on granite and doing it directly on the granite. Always use a towel if you're using a granite surface, because first of all, you could chip the granite or marble or whatever surface you have, like if you're doing it on a kitchen island or kitchen countertop. Or any of those kinds. There we go. Now we've got to be careful also when you're taking that out with the set screws that you don't chip the rim. Incredibly enough, this is not chipped. There's no chips on these at all. But this is not really thick glass. Some of them are super thick. The new ones that you buy, if you buy a new one, this applies to new fixtures as well. They're very thin. They're like very lightweight. If you buy the less expensive ones, they're like scary lightweight. So I'm just going to set that gently over to the side. And now I know how to take this apart. These wires are a little frayed for the outside insulation, but the plastic insulation underneath the braiding is in great shape. I just want to check it out. My brackets are fine. Let's see if I can get this. The end cap comes right off. It's no longer brass. It looks like the brass has come off, just the brass coating. But I'm fine with that because they are vintage, and I'm going to be cleaning up the brown part, the brown regular metal, and that's the part I'm going to be concerned more with. So I know that bracket's in great shape. I'm going to screw it on so that it's not wiggling around too much, but that's not tight. I'm going to go in and take this screw out that keeps the socket in. So to finish my story for this whole saga of how we got these light fixtures, young man, very sweet, ended up doing more shopping and got a bunch of stuff. He was there for longer than we were there. But as we were going out, he was putting stuff on top of, putting blankets and stuff on top of his car. He has a regular car and he was taking his stuff home. So cool. But it's just like, it was really neat to see, him so appreciative of this style, this sort of mid-century thing that's hot that Lee and I have been, obsessed with since he and I met. We've always liked the mid-century Scandinavian look, or that Scandinavian, whatever it is that they call it. And so I'm just going to clean up this little set screw. It's in good shape. Gonna put it in my little holder here for the, just pop it right in there. It's going to hold it together. This insulation's a little frayed. This is fiberglass, it looks like. And I'm going to put a little bit of tape around it just to hold it together, to stabilize it. And then where it goes into the fixture, so I've got my electrical tape. Always use electrical tape for electrical work. Don't use masking tape, flammable. Don't use plastic electric tape, meltable. Like that you would use for wrapping presents. Just don't use it. If you don't have electrical tape, go and get it. It's super cheap, and you need to use electrical tape. It doesn't conduct electricity as well, I guess. And it doesn't melt very easily. So the wires get warm and get hot if they've got a lot of current being drawn through them because of resistance, because of electrons and all of those fun things. So you really want to make sure that if you're doing electrical, use electrical tape. It's easy to find, it's inexpensive, and it's worth using the right stuff. So I just put a thin layer, make sure that it's completely tight all the way around it. I don't want it to be loosey-goosey around there. This little fraying right here, if you can see it, there it is where the wire goes into the metal here. And it is a little, actually it's where it comes out the other side, sorry. I'm going to put a little piece on there, just enough to wrap it around once and make sure that it doesn't fray anymore with any kind of movement. Not that it's going to have a lot of movement, but with wind and things, since it is going to be outside, I want to be safe. It's safer than sorry. And what I do is I always start at one side, get it all the way around, nice and stabilized, and then I'm going to draw it down the wire at an angle. See how it just became at an angle? You see that? Yep. And then just wrap it so that my fingers are only on the outside of the tape, not the sticky side. I know that sounds like logical, but think about it. And then I'm going to do the other side as well, really quickly. Just a small piece. All I'm doing is a couple fingers wide. It's better if you do cut it, if you have that capacity, than to tear it, because tearing it stretches it and makes a crappy ending. But when I'm doing light fixtures and I need to suddenly tape something, or I'm taping over a wire nut, I'm not going to be cutting every piece, right? Unless I'm working like on a workbench doing it. There we go. That gives it really a little bit more stable on the wires. So now I'm going to clean up this end. I'm going to take my pliers and I'm just going to gently run it around the outside. So I'm spinning those wires together and getting them all sort of going in the same direction. But I'm not, as I said, I'm not clamping down. I'm literally running it around the outside. And I'm going to stabilize it. I'm going to hold it as close to where I'm doing it and just run it around. And I'm going to move my fingers down, and the next section I'm going to run it around. Right? There we go. And that tightens those wires all up. You can see that right there. Much nicer, because it looked like this. You can see that. Right? So I'm going to do that on this side as well. I'm going to clean up any of the wires. Oops. Clean up any of the wire insulation that was around the edge that might be frayed or whatever. I don't need to get it completely clean, but I do want to, like I said, clean it up for the electrician. So I'm going to take it, fingers right near where I'm turning it, and I'm just going to run it around. It just is skimming it. Move out my fingers, keep it all together, and do it however many times I need to do it as I work my way out toward the end. Because why am I not clamping down on it? Because I don't want to stress the wires out. I don't need to clamp them to tightly wind them or anything like that. I just need to get them all going in that direction. Now, if you don't have a pair of these and you do any electrical of your own, get a pair. They're not expensive. Totally worth having. It tells you the gauge here, the size of the holes, how to strip, clamping, all of these things, and it's got a little cutter edge. So it's great. It saves time. You can get one of those they have the new ones that you stick the wire in, it automatically strips the what do you call it, the insulation off it, which are pretty cool. But this has worked for a long time for me, so I can't really justify getting another one. I'm just snipping the very ends, the fray ends, and leaving plenty of wire so that my electrician doesn't have to worry about it. And I want to present him a nice and clean. There we go. Get my wires out of there. Nice and clean ends. Ta-da! All done there. And we've reinforced the wire where it needs to be. It's probably overkill. Definitely overkill. And this is, I'm not an electrician, and this is something that you don't need to be an electrician for, as long as you make sense doing it. So now all these contacts are in great shape. So when I was thinking that I was going to have to replace it, oh my God, that's the wrong brush again. I was hoping that there were going to be screws here. Well, I was thinking that there were going to be screws here, and that this piece, which is in fabulous shape, is potential that I've found light fixtures where the this piece is like cracked, because it's that old plastic that gets brittle over the years and heat and everything like that. And then a lot of times they'll have screws, and then you can replace these. They actually sell replacements where that you screw the wires on. So what I would have done is I would have taken my lamp wire and just taken it and wired it directly with a screw onto the bottom of the socket, and then I would have done exactly what I'm doing, which is to cut it to a certain length, feed it through. So that's really the only difference. I want to make sure I clean up everything, and it's beautifully clean on the inside. You can see that. I mean, it's like super clean. It's really good, and the contacts here are really good. Now, I don't know if these are actually vintage, but they look vintage. That's all that matters. I don't really care. I'm not one of those people that says, oh yes, it's from 1962 and so-and-so's house. I actually do say that periodically. I'm lying. But only when it's interesting to me. So, all right, we're gonna just feed this back through, and then we'll be done with not rewiring, but cleaning up the wiring on these two fixtures. I'm gonna trim this up. I've got the fiberglass is sort of frayed around the edges, just to make it nicer when he takes it and he goes, oh, these are in great shape. I don't have to do anything, and they are safe. There we go. Feed it. What I'm doing is I'm feeding it right through the hole, both the wires at the same time, hoping that they'll actually go through the other end. There's one wire at a time. All right, so I can't get both of them to go at the same time. What do? Oh, golly, no, end of the world. No, it's not. I'm going to take a bit of tape. You don't have to use electrical tape for this, but you can use whatever tape you want. I've got my electrical tape out. A small piece of electrical tape. Put things back where they belong. I'm going to take that electrical tape. I'm going to very tightly use the very end, and I'm going to tape this ends together only once around, because I don't want to bulk it up, and then I'm going to cut off my tape. Right? So all I want to do is keep them together while I feed it through. So now I'm going to feed it through the hole, and bada bing, bada boom, it pops right out. Right? Ta-da! No problems. And there they are. Now, since I didn't use a ton of tape, they come right apart, and I don't have to mess with, oh my God, I put 16 layers of tape on to keep them through. It was so bulky, it wouldn't go through the end anymore. So, and the reason I tell you that is because I've been there, done that multiple times maybe. Yes, multiple times. I learned that lesson just by doing, where I overkill it with the tape, and then it's like, well, shit, that just worked against me instead of for me. So I'm going to put it back on that mounting, that little piece of metal that's in there, take my little set screw, and I'm going to take my needle nose pliers, because getting it down in there is a nightmare, and this will just make your life easier. Stick them on the end of your needle nose pliers, put it right down in the hole, because I can't get my fat fingers in there. Even if you don't have fat fingers, even if you have small fingers, it ain't going in there. And then I'm just going to tighten it down. Now do not over tighten it, because you do not want to strip it. It's a flathead screw, but you want it to be tight to keep everything in place, but not overly tightened to crack the plastic. Careful. So that's done. And we are done here. Alrighty. And bingo, bango, all set. We have our two fixtures. I will take something, buff this up a little bit. It's not going to take a lot to clean up the metal, and then our fixtures will be fabulous, and the wires will be nice and cleaned up and stable for our electrician to install them on the outside of the house. So I hope this has helped a little bit, maybe been a little interesting, and hope you enjoyed the story about how we got these. And put your stuff back in your box. Put stuff away. I know I harp on that, but trust me, it's worth it. And so it's great. It's a fun little story, and it was just a really sweet experience to have such a nice guy be that much nicer and so generous. And of course, I'm going to pay that forward. And when I have a chance to do that for somebody else, I will totally pay forward. So I hope you have a wonderful day. Put more love out in the world. There's not enough love out there. Also, don't be too harsh on yourself. learn from your mistakes. Give yourself opportunity to have that learning experience, and just have a great day. Bye.